The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Thursday, July 31st. I'm back home for like, 3 days? 4 days? Anyway, we'll try to do shows while I'm back home. Hopefully, you guys are all having a fantastic week. I had a good week. Last week, at the end of the week, I did a course for the Peterson Academy on money. And that was fun. Money's hard, though. It's hard to talk about. I mean, because particularly given the modern monetary system with the Fed and everything going on, it's hard. There's a lot of moving pieces. Anyway, it was all a lot of fun. We talked about the gold standard. Then I spent a whole session on Bitcoin. Then a whole session on stable coins and other cryptos. So a lot covered. And then this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I did a course for them on trade, which was a lot easier, but was still a lot of fun and a lot of new material. It was really, really good. So that was all good. So 2 courses. They should all be out by the end of the year. So I should have, by the end of this year, I should have 5 courses on the Peterson Academy platform: capitalism, finance, the corporation on business, money, and trade. I mean, you should consider signing up for the Peterson Academy just to catch those 5 courses, and who knows how many courses I'll be doing next year. So I expect that we'll have a bunch of stuff on the Peterson Academy platform. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous courses. They're great to watch. The high quality production value is superb. I hope some of you get a chance to actually watch them. All right. Today we're going to jump into the news. And I will just say that Michael has already dropped $110 on questions. He's got 7 questions down. So he is, getting us off to a fantastic start. So thank you, Michael. We will get to those questions once we finish kind of going over the news. You too can participate, can join with Michael in asking questions and supporting the show. You can do stickers, you can do super chats, whatever fits you. But super chats are great because you get to shape what I talk about, because you get to ask questions and I answer them, all of them. And I read your comments, and so much better than the chat itself. But keep chatting. Engagement is what drives the algorithm. So engage. All right. Let's talk tariffs. I know we keep coming back to the same topic because it's such a central topic for the Trump administration. This is the thing that they seem to be dealing with on a daily basis, and things change constantly, and he keeps changing his mind, and things keep adjusting, and so it's constantly going on. And since I just did a whole 3 days on trade, literally 3 days, 8 hours total on trade and tariffs. Hampering trade, raising tariffs, there's just no positives. Just no positives. It's all negative. And in this case, it's all negative. So the Trump tariffs are all negative. I try to look for positives. I try to, trade-offs. It's just the only positive is, if you want to think of it as a positive, is revenue is growing. But that's a positive? I don't know how that's a positive. That's a tax. That means that taxes have gone up on all of us, and it's a hidden tax, and it's a tax we won't acknowledge, and Trump is touting this as if it's something to be proud of, that he's now taxing all of us more. Kind of bizarre. All right, let's go down the deals. I mean, there's a bunch of deals. We've done a bunch of deals have been announced. None of them have been written up. Not a single one of the deals do we have a clear articulation of, what exactly is involved, and all the goods and reciprocity and tariffs on goods coming in and tariffs on goods going to the other country. We don't have the details of all this. All of these are like general principles that Trump has tweeted about, pretty much. Well, somebody's tweeted about. So all of these are frameworks. These are not ultimate deals, and that just it continues. Now, they were all coming in under, with the exception of Brazil, under what Trump had promised. So they're all coming in below kind of the worst case scenario. Like almost all the deals so far, with the exception of China, are 20% or below. So nothing's above that. And that's a rate which will not kill trade, hurt trade, reduce your standard of living, reduce your quality of life, and increase revenue, because we'll still buy stuff. Just not as much, because it'll be more expensive. All right, so we got a trade framework with the UK. The United States would charge 10% baseline tariffs on UK goods. But there are all kind of quotas and exemptions and stuff. Again, hard to tell exactly what's going on because there's nothing in writing. There's no deal to go over. Trump just met with Starmer in Scotland when Trump was there golfing, and we still don't know what exactly is going to be in the deal. So there's still tariffs on UK steel and aluminum at the 50% level, right? But are they going to slash them? How much? It seems like the U.S. is going to cut them, but it's not clear how much. And then there's a UK digital services tax, which the U.S. wants scrapped, but it seems to be continuing. And yeah, we don't have details. Vietnam got one of the higher rates, 20%. 20%. That was on July 2nd. And added to the 20% is a 40% tariff on what's called transshipping. So if the United States can show that the goods being sent from Vietnam are really like made in China, and they're just going through Vietnam to get the low tariff, then the United States can slap a 40% tax on those. So China's going to have to look at other countries to do the transshipping through. Transshipping was something Chinese manufacturers were doing from the first Trump administration when he placed tariffs on China. Now they're going to have to figure out how to do it differently. But this is just the 40. I don't think Vietnam expected 20%. They expected lower. They had expected 11%. But Trump unilaterally did 20%. And again, no details of a deal. Supposedly, they're not charging us much tariffs at all. Indonesia got 19%. Why 19%? Not clear. But maybe it's because the White House, maybe 19 rather than more, is because Indonesia is going to eliminate trade barriers completely on over 99% of U.S. products exported to Indonesia. Agriculture, energy, and other stuff, right? So some barriers are falling for them and for American exporters. None are really falling for us. Remember, tariffs on all these countries before Trump came into office were single digits, low single digits. So taxes have been raised. They're lower than what he promised in April, but they're 5-6 times higher than what they were before April. Philippines got also a 19. So Philippines was treated like Vietnam, got also a 19%. There are all kinds of non-tariff barriers, and the framework says they're going to be addressed. Again, no deal yet, nothing in writing, just unilateral. Indonesia. Oh, it's Indonesia that got 19. Sorry. What did the Philippines get? 19 as well. So Vietnam 20, Indonesia 19, Philippines 19. All right. Japan got 15. And he said, Trump called the deal perhaps the largest deal ever made, although it's a stupid deal because suddenly we're paying a lot of money for Japanese goods. Not clear why. American car companies weren't happy with this one because 15% on Japanese cars, but American cars now have, if they bring them in from Mexico, American companies or Canada, they pay 25%. This deal is not clear exactly what is going on. The Japanese don't seem happy with this at all. And again, it's still not in writing. Japan did say, according to Trump, that they would invest $550 billion in the United States and that the United States would receive 90% of the profit. How does that work? It doesn't make any sense. And by the way, here's the funny thing about trade, right? Countries like Japan, with which we run trade deficits, all the dollars that they have beyond what they use to import stuff, they invest in the U.S. So is $550 billion of investment in the U.S. unusual? Is that big? Japan is one of the largest buyers of U.S. government bonds in the world. They heavily invest in the United States already. Is this in addition to that? Is this just recognizing something that's already happening anyway? None of that is clear. None of that is clear. It's just, at this point, most of the stuff is type. We got a deal with the EU at 15%. Again, auto companies are not that happy with it. Trump called it the best deal, ever. European Commissioner thought it was the best deal they could get in a very difficult circumstances, but nobody's happy about this deal. South Korea got 15%. We basically had a free trade deal with South Korea. Tariffs, for the most part, was zero with South Korea before Trump. Again, U.S. Commerce Secretary is saying that they have promised to invest $350 billion in the United States. 90% of the profits from that will go to American people. What does any of that mean? I don't understand these investments. I don't understand. I mean, there's talk, of course, about some of these investments being determined by President Trump will decide where the money goes. I mean, that sounds a little scary in the sense that, ripe for corruption? No, not this administration. Trump would never do that. That would never happen. Come on, Yaron. Right now, there's so many different tariff rates, right? The different products like steel, aluminum, copper, automobiles, are all on a different scale than the individual country tariffs. Customs are complaining that they can't keep track. It's too complex. Their software is struggling. They have to retool it every night. And there's so many codes. And every country is different. So, in addition to that, businesses have to fix it. So Customs is making lots of errors. People are struggling to keep up. Customs can't keep up. Brokers that are sent there in order to help businesses clear customs are saying, quote, Customs don't keep up with it. The broker didn't keep up with it, and the importer didn't even know it was happening. And it keeps changing every day. Whoops, what happened there? Second. All right, we're back. Okay. So we'll have it going on. It's according to the Tax Foundation, I haven't checked the numbers, but according to the Tax Foundation, the tariffs so far have amount to an average tax increase on pretty much every U.S. household in 2025 alone of $1,300. I mean, it's not like we're all going to go bankrupt, but it's $1,300. Now, today, Donald Trump had a long conversation with the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum. And he said the conversation was very successful. He likes Claudia for some reason. He doesn't like the Canadians, but he gets along with Claudia. I'm not sure what it is she has on him. Very successful. More and more, he says, we're going to know and understand each other. He writes the complexities of a deal with Mexico are somewhat different than other nations because of both the problems and assets of the border. We have agreed to extend for a 90-day period. So he's extended the Mexico, we don't know yet what the tariff will be, for 90 days. The exact deal, same deal as we had for the last short period of time, namely Mexico will continue to pay a 25% fentanyl tax, 25% tariff on cars, so higher taxes on cars coming from Mexico, which are American cars, than from Japan or Germany. Go figure, right? You tell me how that makes sense, but this is why American companies are not happy. And 50% tariff on steel, aluminum, and copper. Additionally, Mexico has agreed to immediately terminate its non-tariff trade barriers, of which there were many. We will be talking to Mexico over the next 90 days with the goal of signing a trade deal somewhere within the 90-day period of time, or longer. So he's already building in the potential for an extension. Present at the meeting were Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary Bassett, Marco Rubio, Ludwig, Trade Representative, There will be continued cooperation on the border as it relates to all aspects of security, including drugs, drug distribution, and illegal immigration into the United States. So we don't yet have a deal with Mexico. Who knows when we'll have a deal with Mexico? The tariffs are pretty bad with Mexico. 25% on all that stuff. Those are not good. And we will see. The drama continues. There's no deal with Canada yet. India was a surprise. I thought they were working on a deal with India. I thought J.D. Vance was over there and he had softened it all up. I thought there was real progress being made with the Indians, and there was going to be something done. Well, it turns out no. So Trump unilaterally placed 25% tariff on India and some kind of penalty on top of that for India buying oil from Russia. Indeed, there's news now that the Indian refineries are stopping the purchase of oil from Russia in order to kind of abide by him. I guess India's state-owned oil refineries, I'm just reading for the story, stopped importing Russian oil after U.S. President Trump threatened 100% tariffs for cooperation with Russia. The suspension began this week. Indian Oil Corp, the largest oil company operating 10 of India's 20 refineries with 60 million ton annual capacity, has ceased purchasing Russian oil. Well, that's good. So Russia's going to become more desperate in terms of where it sends its oil. But India got slammed, and the main issue with India was they wouldn't open up the ag market. They wouldn't open up the agricultural market to U.S. They're afraid of farmers revolting if they start having to compete with American farmers, who are much more productive. Finally, something that might affect all of you. Let's do this first. We've talked about Brazil. He's increased in Brazil even more, above the 50% he had originally said. And then the big one, I think, for a lot of people is this, what do you call it? These tariffs on stuff you get in the mail from outside the country. Like if you buy something and it comes from Europe, it comes somewhere else, if it's under, it used to be, if it's under 800, right, then you just don't pay a tariff on it. It's just not worth them the time for them to collect it. It's a major hassle for all of us, because if you order something mail order and there's a tax to be collected, import duty, where does it get collected? How do you clear customs? It now becomes much more cumbersome. It's called a de minimis exemption. It's not really an exemption, and it's not a loophole. It's just, you don't have to pay a tax if you buy something under 800. Well, Trump has basically said that's gone. You don't have to pay. You have to pay on everything. You have to pay on everything. $80% minimum tariff. If they mail something and they buy it off the internet, at least from Europe, and I think that's true of Asia as well. I think other countries it's higher. This all starts August 29th. So if you want to do shopping through Timo or anything like that, do it before August 29th. Do it before August 29th. I mean, people worry about, Amazon doesn't have competition. Well, they finally got competition from these Chinese companies like Temu. And this is basically going to destroy that competition unless they open up warehouses in the United States and find a way to source the stuff. Amazon's very happy. They now dominate the online buying stuff, and consumers should be very sad. Americans should be very sad. Now, he could change his mind by August 29th, but this one he's already changed his mind twice, I think. So this would be a change of a change of a change of mind, something like that. Anyway, all of this at the margin suppresses trade, reduces the amount of goods flowing across the oceans, at least to America. That reduces your standard of living, quality of life. The stuff that does come across the ocean is more expensive. It's just a fact. It's more expensive by the tariff. You are paying the tariff. We know that because government revenues are going up. The fact that government revenues are going up is a sign, as if you needed one, that you are paying the tariff, not producers overseas, because if they paid the tariff, it wouldn't flow to Treasury. They would pay the tariff by lowering prices. But we know they're not, because they couldn't, because they don't have margins high enough to lower prices. So we are all seeing an increase in the costs of things that we are buying that are made outside the country, which is a significant amount of stuff, and a significant amount of stuff that enhances our well-being. Again, global trade is a massive net positive. It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win. Americans do not lose. Just to go over my day before last at the Peterson Academy, trade at low rates of tariff, zero ideally. Global trade does not reduce wages, actually helps increasing them. Does not increase unemployment. It doesn't change employment. It doesn't reduce GDP growth. It doesn't even, in any kind of meaningful sense, America is not deindustrialized because of China. We're actually producing more stuff than we ever had before. Middle class is more robust than it ever has been before. More people have moved out of the middle class to being rich than ever before. By every parameter, the United States is doing well. Not in spite of trade, to some extent because of trade. And it's very, very hard to measure the impact of what the tariffs are going to have. Very hard to measure. Very hard to tell. And we might not know for 20 years exactly what happened, how it affected our economy. All we know, pretty much with certainty, because if you know a little bit of economics, you know this, that it's damaged our economy. How much? Don't know. Exactly where? Don't know. Negative? Absolutely. Tariffs are lose, 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 lose. No beneficiaries. None. Maybe because tax revenue will go up, some of the people who got their taxes cut this last round of tax cuts, but it's not even clear that the revenue increases are going to be sustainable. And the debt is increasing no matter what. So it's not like this was a game changer and changed the trajectory in any kind of way. Yeah, I mean, tariffs and anti-trade and what I call the not just me, a lot of people are calling the neo-mercantilists. There's nothing good about neo-mercantilism. Mercantilism was bad to begin with. Neo-mercantilism is bad. It's just bad. All right, in the meantime, maybe waiting to the rescue are the courts. This morning, the case that a number of plaintiffs have brought against the Trump administration, claiming that these tariffs, the tariffs they use, this Emergency Economic Act, the argument, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the IEEPA. Anyway, today, there were arguments made with regard to the IEEPA and these tariffs. Most of these tariffs, not all of them, like the steel, aluminum, copper, automobile tariffs, fentanyl tariffs. Those tariffs are under a different provision. They're under national security. That I don't think the courts will ever overturn. This one is the 15% on Japan, the 20% on, 19% in Indonesia and the Philippines, the whatever it is on India. Those tariffs, even the Brazilian tariffs, those are all under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, an act that does not mention tariffs even once, and that requires declaring an emergency, an economic emergency. Anyway, arguments were made before the federal appellate court today, and it really seemed like, you can sometimes tell from the questions that the judges are asking and their attitude while they ask the questions. It really does seem like the judges are skeptical of the use of the law to justify tariffs. Now, you remember a lower court, the International Trade Court, American International Trade Court, ruled that what Trump was doing was unconstitutional. All these tariffs are unconstitutional. Now it's on appeal. Trump administration appealed it. And now the appellate court is going to have to decide. And of course, this case is guaranteed to go to the Supreme Court. And this will be one of the more interesting cases. It will go up probably in the fall. The appellate court is viewing it now, maybe in the winter. But within 6 to 9 months, we will know. We will know. It could be massive. If they rule this unconstitutional, first of all, it would make all these tariffs go away instantly. Now, Trump will find a way to reinstitute them based on some other unconstitutional legal provision, which then we'll have to go through the court to figure it out. But there'll be a gap there, and there'll be a reprieve. It will increase uncertainty for the markets. Nobody will like it, but at least for a while, we'll get these tariffs off our back. And maybe Trump at that point will be too lazy to actually reinstate them. I think a lot of people including Bessner, the Treasury Secretary, are hoping that that's what happened. I think a lot of people, even within the administration, are hoping that the courts save them because they know this is horrible, stupid, disastrous policy. So one of the judges today said, when we look at the statute, the IEEPA, we see foreign exchange, payments, currency, and that the law gives the president the power to regulate those, right? But tariffs seems to have no friends in that statute. So it doesn't seem like they appear in the statute, and they don't. One of the other judges said, or the lawyer who argued for the plaintiff, actually, the lawyer who argued for the plaintiff said, you just heard an argument in response to several judges' questions that our federal courts are powerless and that the president can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, for as long as he wants, so long as he declares an emergency. That is a breathtaking claim to power that no president has asserted in 200 years, and the consequences are staggering. So I think that's true. That's all true. So it's not just, I mean, this case is important not only because tariffs are bad and it would be great to get rid of them. This case is important because I think it's unequivocal that this is a case of presidential. This is an issue of executive power. Can the president just make up emergencies and do whatever the hell he wants? So it'll be interesting to see. We'll see what happens. He says Trump wrote today in response to kind of what was going on in the court. If our country was not able to protect itself by using tariffs against tariffs, we would be dead with no chance of survival or success. So he's making this a life or death issue. He's also tariffs against tariffs, as if the other side, other countries have very, very low tariffs with us. And again, Mexico, for example, we had NAFTA, which the Trump version of NAFTA, which basically set tariffs at zero for a lot of stuff. So it's complete BS. This is about executive power. So let's see what the courts rule and how this goes. I know that the Corday Gallery, I think, is one of the plaintiffs. I don't know if this is their case, if they've joined cases. I know this is the case that Ilya Somin has taken, and he's got a number of plaintiffs there. I don't know if they've combined cases and they're all in front of the, because they're like at least 3, maybe 5 different cases arguing against the IEEPA and its constitutionality. One of them with the Pacific Legal Foundation. I don't think this is the Pacific Legal Foundation case. I think this was the Ilya Somin case. All right. Finally, with regard to tariffs, and really this brings in the topic of inflation, we're starting to see signs of tariffs being passed on to consumers, that prices are going up. Prices of tariffed goods are indeed going up. They have to. There's no other choice. Both the PC, what is the PC? Something consumer expenditure. Both, was reported today. It was up. It's up at an annualized rate of almost 3%, or 3.1%, right? The June number annualized forward is 2.8%. It's annualized at 3.1%. The year over year, the last 12 months is 2.8%. So running inflation at 3%, which is higher than what the Fed wants, which is 2%. The prices that we're seeing go up are the prices of goods that are being tariffed. Powell, in announcing that the Fed will not be lowering interest rates, said in his speech, quote, increased tariffs are pushing up prices in some categories of goods. This is Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have moved up on balance over the course of this year on news about tariffs. So inflation expectations and actual inflation both moving up. Not good, and it takes time for these things to manifest themselves economically, manifest themselves in economic growth and economic success, in our consumption behavior and how we act. At the same time, the Treasury Department, let me just look at this one second. Yeah, so as I said, the Fed is not lowering interest rates. He's like ignoring Trump. Trump's probably furious at him right now because he doesn't like to be ignored. But so far, Trump has not gotten the courage to fire Jerome Powell. Why are you not talking about YouTube rolling ID verification to watch videos? Because I don't know that that's happening. I don't know what that is. Haven't heard about it. But let me also say that YouTube could do what it wants. It might not be, it might offend you, but YouTube is a private company. They can do what they want. Now, is that, the UK, it's not YouTube. UK new law. New age verification system. Why am I not talking about that? YouTube is turning over age verification to AI. YouTube will start using machine learning to determine whether viewers should be on teen accounts. The question is that a legal thing? Are they forced to do it by law? Or is that a YouTube decision to make? They can do that. Right? Anyway, that was distracting. U.S. Treasury. U.S. Treasury will issue short-term debt to help fund its widening budget deficit. So, the Treasury has to basically sell $1 trillion of debt over the next quarter in order to fund the deficit. And, this is something, if interest rates go up, it'll mean the cost of the debt will keep going up. If interest rates go down, then they can benefit from short-term debt later on. But short-term debt to fund long-term deficits doesn't really make sense. Because what happens? The interest rates change. As they change, your cost of funding changes. You should match your liabilities with your assets. So if you're running long-term deficits, you should raise long-term debt. And indeed, Bassett was unbelievably critical of the Biden administration for using short-term debt to fund the deficit. And now he's doing the same thing. The same thing. All right. All right, let me say a few more things about age verification. I think there's a legitimate concern around age verification, right? On both sides, both privacy concern, but also on an age verification concern. There certainly is a concern. If you go into a grocery store and you try to buy a bunch of alcohol, they verify your age. At least if you don't have white hair like me. The same thing happens at a bar. If you go into a bar and order a drink. The same thing happens if you want to buy porn in physical space. And so porn is a real issue. And the question is, should, for example, porn sites be required to have age verification? And the answer is probably yes. How do you do that exactly? There have to be ways in which you can do that that preserve, that still preserve privacy. Yeah, kids can't sign contracts or click agree, but they can prove that they're a kid. Or they can try to prove that they're not a kid. So they can click agree, and they can pretend to sign a contract no matter what. So it's problematic. There's no easy solution to it. Porn is a real issue. I mean, the idea that any kid can just go online and even not searching porn, just put in the wrong search terms, get to porn accidentally is a little much. And I'm pretty pro-sex as you'll get. So, I mean, as users, right? So I don't know what you do that. Now, age verification for anything else, I think is clearly a violation of rights. It's clearly wrong. It's clearly offensive. This is, being instituted by European countries in order to increase surveillance over the populations. Because they have hate speech laws that violate our rights and negate the whole idea of free speech. And it's disgusting and horrible. I don't blame YouTube, and I don't blame private companies who have no choice but to figure out ways to do this. And I think the least offensive way they can figure out how to do. I don't know if they've mastered it. I don't know if they've been able to do it right. But I can't blame them for trying, given the laws are coming. And again, I think the main thing you're trying to protect kids from online is porn, or should be really the main thing that you're trying to protect kids from. Particularly, again, Colleen says, who hasn't accidentally typed one letter off and happens upon porn? Now, I don't care if I happen upon porn. Porn does not offend me that much, but I don't want my 10-year-old, my 12-year-old, my 8-year-old. I don't think that's appropriate, right? Particularly the kind of porn that exists online. I mean, there's porn and there's porn, and the porn these days is pretty damn disgusting. Parental controls are not that easy. Getting to a laptop and having these. I mean, I don't want the images just popping up. So to have a screen, first of all, to have a screen that says, hey, you're at a porn site. Are you sure you're 18? I don't see as offensive at all. I think that is good customer service. I don't think there should be a law. It should just be standard stuff. That websites that are only appropriate for adults should have some kind of warning before you enter them, at the very least, right? And that's not violating anybody's rights for anything. What rights are being sacrificed? What rights are being sacrificed? A private company is saying, your internet provider or YouTube or anything is saying, to access certain sites, we require an ID. That's not sacrificing your rights. It might be sacrificing your convenience. It might even be sacrificing your privacy, but you don't have a privacy right on somebody else's platform. If you can't understand that an 8-year-old should not be seeing the kind of porn that pops up on a porn site when you just initially go, then, there's something really a problem with you. I don't think that in a world with digital media everywhere, you can just say it's the parents' responsibility. I do think that, and I think websites should market themselves as such. I think internet providers should probably do this. They should probably have some kind of something you would need to do in order to get to a site that was completely 100% inappropriate for kids. You don't have a freedom to use somebody else's platform any way you want. That's not freedom. There's no freedom to use somebody else's platform. You're violating somebody else's property rights. If they demand from you to show an ID, I mean, the government maybe shouldn't be doing it. Then it's an issue of freedom. But if a company voluntarily says, I want to make sure that if you're accessing if Chrome does it, Google does it, or if your internet provider does it, or YouTube does it, nobody's freedom is being violated. Now, again, if the government is doing it, it's a question of how are they doing it? What exactly are they doing? I don't trust the government to limit this to pornography. It's probably much more widespread than that. And there are all kinds of ways to do it, I'm sure, that preserve your privacy. I'm not, again, if you don't understand what is unhealthy about 8-year-olds being exposed to porn, then there's something off with you. There's something really off with you. This is the same people who didn't understand what was wrong with 100 guys having sex with the same woman and why the guys were creeps and horrible people. If you don't understand that, there's very little I can do to explain it. I could explain it. I could explain it in great detail. I'm not really interested in doing that to people who don't get it already, because I think that's pretty straightforward and pretty simple to understand. If you have any sense of what sex means, if you have any sense of the kind of pornography that's out there, God, and if you've ever had kids, or if you've ever been exposed to children in any way, if you've been a kid, that you would want that to happen to a child, is you're not thinking. You're just emoting. All right, back to our topics. I think people watch too many violent films. I agree with that. And it's not good for you. I don't think it's quite as, and again, I have no problem with, kids watching sex scenes in movies that are tastefully done. But, I think violence is a lot worse than sex when the sex is tastefully done. But have you gone to a porn site recently? Just go to a porn site right now and look at what they show. And you tell me that you don't see any problem with an 8-year-old seeing that stuff. And that would not have any repercussions or consequences. That's all cool. And a healthy culture, a good society, kids just are exposed to that out and out. I mean, even Ayn Rand talked about this, right? She talked about the fact that XXX theaters couldn't just put billboards of sexual activities out in the open where everybody could see it. Right? So you have to create something. How do you do that exactly? We could talk about. Chandler's going to check it out. Thank you, Chandler. Please report back on what you find. Yeah. All right. Back to politics. I think RDF is right. He says, I wouldn't want kids to think porn has anything to do with sex. Yeah, I think that's right. That's one way to approach it. And there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for these kind of things. And childhood is not a time and a place to be exposed to start off your exposure with sex with those images. Ultimately, maybe you get off on those images. That's fine. But that's not where you start. There needs to be at least what constituted pornography when I was growing up was a lot softer than, a lot by orders of magnitude than what is today just pops up on any random website. But, you know, and again, you won't find anybody who's more pro being open about sex and talking about sex and so on than me. All right, well, way behind here, and this is a topic I didn't expect to talk about. So let me get back on topic, and then if we have time, we can talk about this more later on, particularly if somebody asks a super chat question about this. What do you do? What do you do with porn sites? But there's no question. Let me just end with this. There's no question, particularly in Europe, that the motivation behind requiring IDs goes beyond porn and is an infringement on rights. It's coming from the government, and it's part of them wanting to monitor us, and this has to do also with their attitude towards social media and all these other things, and certainly social media use for children. That is completely a parent issue. Almost everything is a parent issue, except when on any random computer you can just accidentally type in a word and get, whoa. Happened to me. And I try to regulate what my kids saw, and it was uphill battle. Uphill battle. All right, let's see. DOGE. Remember DOGE? You remember the promise of DOGE? You remember how excited everybody was with DOGE? Well, every month that we get numbers of government spending, every month that comes in with government spending numbers, what we see is that our government is spending more in 2025 than it did in 2024, than it did in 2023. I mean, on a kind of month-to-month basis, particularly since like March, spending is only going up. And I just had to mention this, and I'll keep mentioning it, and probably at the end of year end, we'll look and see how much DOGE actually saved us. I'll just say this. I told you so. I told you so. I told you it wouldn't have an impact. Government spending would only increase. Donald Trump at the end of his term will spend more than Donald Trump at the beginning of his term. That's true of every year in between. Spending is only going up. Nothing is really coming down. There's a little bit of movement around what is being spent. No real change. All right, some good news. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. I told you this would be one area where there would be good news. Anyway, the EPA under Obama basically pronounced the climate change as, basically harmful, as endangering human life, and therefore could be regulated, controlled under the the Clean Air Act, which led to all kinds of things, clean air regulations, oil, the ability to regulate car emissions, the ability to regulate all these CO2 emissions. So before this happened under Obama, the EPA could not regulate CO2. CO2 was not defined as a pollutant. After this, CO2 was found to be a pollutant. Under the Clean Air Act, the EPA could regulate it. And for the last, 10 years, it's been regulated, which has done enormous harm to the U.S. Well, according to a draft rule, which is going through the process, and I think will pass, they are going to withdraw that. They're going to overrule. Actually, it's more than 10 years, it's 16 years, because it was passed in 2009 under Obama. they're going to overturn the endangerment finding. They're going to rescind the legal opinion that greenhouse gas emissions put humans at risk, and therefore make it impossible for the EPA to regulate CO2, which would, with one ruling, with one fell swoop, eliminate a bunch of regulations over CO2 emissions. Now, this is one of potentially the biggest deregulatory acts that you can do. I'd say the only challenge with this is that because it's done at the regulatory agency, a future AOC administration could just reverse it and reinstate all the regulations. But at least we'd get, for a while, it would be better again if it was legislation, but at least we get a reprieve for a while until some future administration chooses to reverse it. But according to Lee Zeldin, who runs the EPA, he called it the most consequential day of deregulation in American history. Now, I think that's an exaggeration, but it's huge. Huge and good. So we should, yay. Once in a while, Trump administration does something good. And because we're objective on this show, I bring it to your attention when it is indeed good. Zeldin said, after 16 years, EPA will formally reconsider the endangerment finding. The Trump administration will not sacrifice national prosperity, energy security, and freedom of our people for an agenda that throttles our industries, our mobility, and our consumer choice while benefiting adversaries overseas. Oh, I mean, phrasing it as a national security issue, but fine. I should just phrase it in terms of the rights of Americans. This is great. And to the extent that they can work to defang the Clean Air Act, I'm all for it. I'm all for reducing the power of the EPA as much as possible. As much as possible. So this is good stuff. Gaza. All right. So since last time we talked, I told you what I thought about what was going on in Gaza. There's no question in my mind that some kids are hungry, that a lot of Gazans are hungry, that some might even be starving, but that the starvation claims, the famine claims are, as always, exaggerated, manipulated in order to make Israel look bad. And I think that's only been, every day that passes only confirms that the New York Post, New York Times ran that front page photograph that turned out to be a sick baby, not a starving baby. But there's a lot of stuff like that, just a lot of stuff like that. Also, the real scandal in terms of aid delivery is the fact that the UN is not being able to bring in its trucks, and the fact that once they do bring in the trucks, they're stolen, and that the New York Times fabricates stories saying, oh, no, Hamas does not steal any of the trucks, and that's all fabricated. The situation in Gaza for Gazans is horrible. They're living under horrific conditions. Horrific conditions. And while I'd say about the adults, many of them have earned it, the horrific conditions, children are innocent. So it's sad to see children suffer. They do not support Hamas, the children. They did not vote for them. They did not rush into Israel, rape and pillage and slaughter people. Their parents did, at least some of them. So I have little sympathy for the adults. I do have sympathy for the children. It's horrible. But the moral blame lies 100%, not 95, not 99, not 90, not 80, 100% with Hamas. Hamas has brought it on the children in Gaza. To expect Israel to keep feeding them and placing its own troops in danger in order to do it. To expect Israel to continue to bail Hamas out from the consequences of their own action is altruistic, self-sacrificial craziness. It is immoral. Now, Hamas uses this. It purposely starves its own people. Hamas has stolen all the aid. There is more aid flowing into Gaza over the last 2 years. There is enough aid there to feed the population for a long time. Hamas is sitting on those stockpiles. It is preventing children from getting food. It relishes the photos of children that are hungry. And they brought this war upon themselves. They could end it tomorrow. They could surrender. They could free the hostages. They could sign a ceasefire deal. They won't even do that. Now, why won't they sign a ceasefire deal? Because they think they're winning. And on the PR front, they are winning. I mean, the UK, France, and Portugal now, and Canada have all now announced that they plan to recognize the existence of a Palestinian state, even though there is no such thing, in a few months, if Israel doesn't stop what it's doing. That is a massive victory for Hamas. And for them, it's a sign that October 7th was successful. They got the world's attention. They got what they wanted. Israel now is viewed as the bad guys. If you look at popularity of Israel today among young people in America, in Europe, all over the world, it's never been as unpopular as it is right now. It is hated and despised. Indeed, anti-Israel sentiment and anti-Semitism are through the roof in America. And so the West, instead of telling Israel, do what you need to do to destroy Hamas, is telling Israel, no, we need to save Hamas. Don't do it. Sign a ceasefire or peace deal, no matter what the consequences are. Kick the can down the road. Finally, Israel has decided not to kick the can down the road. Finally, Israel's decided to do something and permanently, resolve this issue. Get rid of its enemy. And the Europeans are all out there. Oh, no, you can't do that. We like the Israelis that kick the can down the road. We like the Israelis who set up October 7th and had their own people murdered and slaughtered. At least babies didn't starve. They were just burnt to death. I mean, what Europe is doing is disgusting. It is despicable. And it plays right into the hands of Hamas. Hamas were ready to cut a deal because Trump seems tough on them. Netanyahu's tough on them. Israel has militarily got them in a stranglehold. Israel now controls 75% of the land in Gaza, right? Which it should have controlled 3 weeks after the war began. But anyway, it controls it. And Hamas was ready to cave. And then these pictures came out, and the world flipped out, and everybody convinced that Israel's famine and genocide, and Hamas is going, oh no, we can't sign a ceasefire deal. They've literally walked away from negotiations. They're not compromising one iota. If you remember, I told you that Trump was putting pressure on Netanyahu, so Netanyahu was giving in to all Hamas's terms. And every time Netanyahu gave in, Hamas increased the pressure, increased the terms, made it harder, and he kept giving in. And then, when all of this happened, they just walked away. Why compromise at all? So, what Europe is doing is playing right into the hands of Hamas. They're supporting the continuation of the war. The war could have been over by now. and they continue to do this. So they really, there's no end, and the no end is the West weakness. That's what perpetuates this. Now, it could be that Israel's military pressure will win it anyway. The challenge is that if there's no deal, then the hostages will not be released. They'll probably be killed. Israel just has to go in and do the job. And as I said before, the longer they wait, the harder it's going to be. One other little thing about Israel, and then we'll go on. And God, I'm way behind. It's just an interesting story. Everybody's complaining about how much money the U.S. gives to Israel. And the U.S. gives Israel a lot of money, too much money. And I've often said, U.S. should not give Israel money. It doesn't need the money. Israel's a relatively rich country. It can support itself. Now, almost all the money Israel gets from the United States, it turns around and buys stuff from the U.S., right, from American companies. But that's just the subsidies from American government to American military-industrial complex, which, again, is not needed. The Israelis can buy it themselves. So, what is $3 billion, they say. That's approximately what they give a year. This is a quote from an expert in Israel, U.S., whatever. He says, quote, "I heard from one of the managers at the Lockheed Martin plant, the manufacturer of F-15s and F-16s, that the upgrades incorporated into the aircraft based on lessons learned from Israel save the United States between 10 and 20 years of research and development. The monetary value of that? Just the F-16s and F-35s that Israel has and uses and trains on and provides input to improve the American versions. How much is that worth?" He says. It's probably about $100 billion per year. He goes on and says, "The former chairman of the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee told me the volume of intelligence that the U.S. receives from Israel is greater than what it receives from all NATO countries combined." How much is that worth? So while I don't think it's good for Israel to get money from the United States, U.S. gets a deal. It's getting an unbelievable deal on its investment. And that is true for a long time. It's been true. All right, I'm just going to say, just do this quickly. I mean, Donald Trump's just been a mess when it comes to Russia. He has obviously supported Putin, not supported Putin, on and off, and friendship, and of course he humiliated Zelensky and barely provides him with any weapons, and it makes it almost impossible for the Ukrainians to fight properly, and sends constantly mixed signals. Right now, he's in a tough mode. He's going to be tough. He gave Putin 50 days to get his act together around the war, and then he came back recently and he said, "Oh, it's going to be 10 days. I'm really pissed off at Putin. So it's 10 days." Well, the Russian thinks this is pretty much a joke, right? Because Trump keeps changing his mind, and it means nothing. So this is what Medvedev, a senior Putin advisor, former president, former prime minister of Russia, said. He says, Trump's playing the ultimatum game with Russia, 50 days or 10 days. He should remember two things. One, Russia isn't Israel or even Iran. So they get it that Trump's ultimatums to all these countries. Two, each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war. Not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. Don't go down the Sleepy Joe road. So Russia's playing him. Now that tweet, which Medvedev put together, that is aimed at MAGA. That is to scare all those World War III types. He also wrote, Medvedev, about Trump's threat against me in his personal network truth, which he banned from operating in our country. In some words of the former Russian president, if some words of the former Russian president caused such a nervous reaction in the entire formidable U.S. president, it means that Russia is right, right in everything and will continue to go its own way. In other words, if Trump is overreacting like this, we're right. And about the dead economy of India and Russia and entering dangerous territory, well, let him remember his favorite films about the walking dead, as well as how dangerous a dead hand that does not exist in nature can be. So he's making fun of Trump. He's not taking him seriously. And they really do think. I think Putin, Medvedev, the Russians think they don't take Trump seriously. They think they can play him and game him, and they have so far. They've got no reason to think otherwise. And nothing he says, none of his threats, none of his comments are taken seriously by them. All right, finally, two kind of positive pieces of news. I read this. This is kind of cool. This one is from Gallup. Worldwide, people in more countries are living better lives and expressing more hope for the future than they have in years. In 2024, a median of 33% of adults across 142 countries rated their lives well enough to be classified as thriving, continuing a trend of steady improvement in life evaluation going back more than a decade. Gallup Life Evaluation Index, based on some anchoring striving scale, asks people to rate their current and future lives on a ladder from 0 to 10. Those scoring 7+ for the present and 8+ for 5 years ahead are thriving, while those rating below 4 are suffering. Everyone else is struggling. Understanding how people evaluate their own lives is, a measure of well-being, I guess. So while you have to take all of this with a grain of salt, and none of this is particularly scientific, and nobody's trying to rate thriving objectively, and people rate their own lives by all kinds of standards. It's good news that people are positive about their lives around the world. And what's really good news is that number is increasing, not decreasing. Now, I have a feeling in the United States it's decreasing because everybody in this country seems so depressed. We're all convinced things are so bad, even though they're not. Well, here's another good story, more objective this time. You remember we talked a lot about autonomous cars? Trucks. Oh, cars. Here's an autonomous car story. Tesla is now operating autonomous taxis in San Francisco. So they've got 2 cities now, San Francisco and Austin. And when I was in Phoenix, I used Waymo a number of times. And it was amazing. I love Waymo. Waymo is so damn cool. And then, I also rode with some Uber drivers. And like today, I was in an Uber car, and he did something, and I thought, God, he almost killed me. Literally. And I was thinking, a Waymo would never do that. He got distracted. Waymo doesn't get distracted. So autonomous trucks and cars are good things. Anyway, autonomous trucks are now driving highways at night, hauling food and dairy between Dallas and Houston. While Waymo for years has been operating driverless robotaxis around the clock, autonomous trucks until recently have stuck mainly to daytime hours and good weather. Aurora Innovations, a startup behind the trucks on the Dallas-Houston route, said Wednesday it had reached a new milestone with its LiDAR system, which bounces lasers off surrounding objects to see its surrounding in 3D. The system is now able, in the dark, to detect objects further than the length of 3 football fields, enabling the vehicle to identify pedestrians, other vehicles, or debris on the road about 11 seconds sooner than a human driver. Not far away, driverless trucks of another company, Kodiak Robotics, are now operating around the clock in parts of West Texas and East New Mexico, delivering loads of sand. This is sand for fracking. Their 5 trucks, which operate on leased roads, not highways, don't have a human on board, or those trucks do have a human behind the wheel just in case. So autonomous cars and trucks are on our way. It's going to save a lot of lives, going to save a lot of time, going to save a lot of energy. It's a super exciting revolution heading our way. All right, let's quickly go to, I have a hard stop a little bit after 6, so let me go to your questions. We are very close to our target, so thank you for all the super chatters. Please, contribute to this. And please consider supporting the show. You can support the show right here with a sticker or a question. Really, really appreciate that. Of course, the questions also get to guide the show. We've got a lot of good stickers today, which is great. Normative Randroid, thank you. And Melanie, 50 euros, thank you. Really appreciate that. Dave Dean, $50, thank you, Dave. Oil W, thank you. Who else did we have? Stephen Hopper, thank you. And yep, I think that's it. I think I got everybody. All right, so that's our stickers. You too can participate. Come and do a sticker, $2, $5, whatever. We're pretty close to the goal, so it would be great if today, first show in a while, if we made it to the goal. And really, what we need is a bunch of stickers in order to get there. All right. Let me just jump into the questions right now. Oh, remind you, if you want to support the show on a monthly basis, please use patreon.com and just put Yaron Brook Show and become a Patreon supporter. It's the best way to support the show. I know many of you are not yet supporting the show. Probably many of you are listening on the podcast, on audio only, and you're not here to support the show, or you're watching YouTube video after the fact. Please consider supporting the show on Patreon or on PayPal. On PayPal, either way, monthly contribution helps a lot, and it's knowable. I know it's coming, and don't forget, this show is made possible from support from you. It can't happen without you guys. All right, Michael, can insecurities be good motivation? For example, if you're insecure about your weight, or your income, or your living situations, can these insecurities be healthy motivations for improvement? Or is it secondhand narcissism? Well, I don't think it's a either-or question. Look, why insecurity, right? If you're overweight, then saying to yourself, I'm overweight, I shouldn't be overweight, I should get myself thinner because, it's unhealthy for me to be overweight. That's not insecurity, that's a motivation. But it's not insecurity. Oh, I'm no good because I'm overweight. I feel uncomfortable. No, you should just make the rational evaluation. I'm not making enough money. I want a better living situation, rather than use, quote, insecurities undermining your self-esteem. What you want is to use values to motivate yourself. And the way to motivate yourself through values is, I want to be healthy. Health is a value. I want to be healthy. Therefore, I must lose weight. Or I want to have more money. I want a nicer car. I want to live in a nicer apartment. I want to have nicer clothes. That is the positive motivation. And that is great. So positive motivation, that is the healthy way to resolve. Insecurities, by their very nature, are a negative drag on your self-esteem, on your energy, on your values. It's motivation by fear rather than motivation by love. Always go with motivation by love. Avoid motivation by fear. So Dave just did another $50. Thank you, Dave. RDF, thank you for the sticker. And Michael says, I see what's going on here. You're trying to upstage me with super chats. First of all, nobody can upstage you, Michael, because you're the king of super chats. You've asked more questions and put more dollars in the questions than anybody in the history of the show, without any question. So you are the undisputed king. Dave is great, and the fact that he's trying to upstage you today is a good thing. We want competition. I like competition. You guys should all be trying to upstage each other. Like right now, Michael has the crown of number one for today, but he's only leading by a fraction. Dave has number two. Dave has risen to number two from being number three with his later support. So I'm not sure who number three is right now. Anyway, we want competition. Somebody could come out of nowhere and overtake Michael like that, like a $250 sticker would get you the crown. Right? So competition is good. Don't stop the competition, Michael. We want it. All right, the Prophet. Rate my portfolio. 24-year-old, IWDA Core Global, IWVL Value Tilt, Emerging Markets, REIT, Commodities. Are the last two pointless whilst young? Better to focus on equities. Well, I mean, the problem is I can't evaluate it without knowing how much money is in each. I mean, what percentage of the portfolio is in each. You should definitely be tilted heavily towards towards equities. You've got a core global, that's good. You got a value tilt, that's good. You want to be value tilted. You've got an emerging market, that's really good. Real estate, commodities, that's good for diversification. You want those. I would, because you're young, I would also, and maybe wait until the next correction for this or the next downturn for this, but I would want some kind of tech, biotech kind of exposure, kind of the upside piece of it. You get a little bit in the core global, but because of the value tilt, you're probably not getting domestically a lot of it. So you want to have some growth. You want to have some growth in areas that you believe things are going to get better in. And again, given that you're young, that's the time to do it. So I would definitely have a little, some in that. Not a lot, 10% maybe, but something. So you're participating in tech. All right, Colleen, to what degree do you think the reports of starvation in Gaza are real, given other reports of faked images or stories? I wouldn't be surprised if there's some starvation in Gaza, but I don't know more than that. Just because of the conditions there and because of what Hamas is doing. It's primarily in those places where it's unsafe to distribute aid, that are outside of the control of Israel, that Hamas still controls. Andrew, what I like about I Will Not Die, It's the World That Will End, is the individualism implied. It's not meant literally. It's a feeling based on the world only exists to you to the extent you can perceive it. Thoughts? Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's definitely, it's a positive statement about all that really matters is you. And to that extent, the world matters because you are alive in it and you're observing it. And once you're gone, it doesn't matter because there's nobody to matter for you, right? So it's a great perspective to have. It's a very hard perspective to have, given how much collectivism and altruism is drilled into us, and the idea of thinking about stuff from a perspective outside of yourself, which is often presented as being objective. No, the beauty of this is the fact that it's your perspective. And that's what matters. You. All right, John, emerging passkey plus Bitcoin tech could verify age minus identity link to personal phones. Child would need a verified adult's phone to access the passkey for phone viewing. Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful solution. I think that's right. I don't think it wasn't Bitcoin, it's blockchain. So passkey blockchain. This is the kind of things that could become the the killer apps for blockchain. So something like that works great, and get adult verification like that where you're not giving out any privacy. It's inconvenient to use the passkey, but you're not giving up privacy. So the inconvenience given what you're trying to protect, I think, is worth it. And again, done privately, I think is a no-brainer. Thank you, John. Good solution. Ian, will you be doing a segment sometime on Texas redistricting, gerrymandering? The GOP knows they will get shellacked in 2026 midterms and are trying to cheat to maintain power. I mean, gerrymandering is cheating, but everybody does it. So, California gerrymanders, has gerrymandered in the past. So has every state have tried. Sometimes the courts stop it. Sometimes the court don't stop it. Sometimes the local laws don't allow it. Sometimes they allow it. But this is not unique to Republicans. It's done every election cycle. It's a constant feature of our politics. I'd be surprised if they didn't do it. So I'm not that excited about the gerrymandering because this is what happens. I'm also not convinced that the Republicans are going to get shellacked in 2026. The reality is that, yes, Republicans are very unpopular. And yes, Trump is very unpopular. But you know who's more unpopular than them? Democrats. Particularly if you get more Mamdanis on there, particularly if Mamdani wins and people get to observe his socialism. This is not a slam dunk election for Democrats. It should be. But the Democrats are doing all in their power to make it competitive. Now, California is not gerrymandered, but it did years ago. I remember that they redistrict in order to preserve, clean counties. And Democrats have done that. And Democrats have done it. They tried to do it in New York. I can't remember what the outcome was. But they keep trying to do it. So it's a constant feature of American politics, and it doesn't. There's nothing unique about Republicans with this regard. If Democrats could do it, they would do it too. Now, how do you solve gerrymandering? I think the courts need to step in, and they need to create an objective process to doing this based on, I don't know what criteria you would use, some geography and population, but it's a tricky issue. It's a tricky issue. Rational IP. Can the choice to become a public prosecutor, motivated by the desire to uphold justice and have a direct impact on society, be fully aligned with rational interest, or is it ultimately driven by altruism? No, I mean, certainly in a rational society, it could be completely self-interested. It's an interesting job. Justice is a selfish virtue. We are all selfishly aligned around justice and the need for justice. My view, you can be a rationally self-interested social worker. You can certainly be a rational self-interested public prosecutor. The biggest challenge of being a public prosecutor today is that there's so many irrational laws on the books, so many laws that don't have where the rights violation is not explicit, or there is no rights violation. Where there's no rights violation, and as a consequence of that, you would have to be prosecuting people who, in a rational society, would not be prosecuted. That's the toughest thing about being a public prosecutor. For example, drug offenses. I mean, Ian is saying they're pushing the limits. Look, Alabama has been trying to redistrict, and the Supreme Court has been saying you can't do that, you can't do this. They've had to go to the Supreme Court. So this is always something in American elections that's constantly being played around with, and the courts push back, and then it's done again, and they try again, and they do this and they do that. And Republicans dominate the South to such an extent that they're the ones who mostly are trying to do it right now. But again, this is not something that hasn't been done before. Maybe they're pushing the envelope. Maybe the courts will have to push back. But unfortunately, this is standard practice in American politics. Not healthy, not good. And you need a standard. And maybe the federal government should establish a standard for how to choose, electoral districts. But the federal government will never do that. I mean, they couldn't get their act together to do that. Michael says, I'm in Berlin at the Führerbunker, drinking boba, asking Super Chat questions. Something tells me the good guys are going to always win out if we don't give up. I think always win out ultimately is true. Question is, what's ultimately and all of that. But yes, good for you, and I'm glad. Enjoy your boba. Mary, thank you for the sticker. I appreciate that. We're only $38 short, guys. Let's see if we can make it actually happen and get to that $500. Michael says, did you reach out to Destiny to go back on a show? Maybe you two could do a live event. Not yet. I haven't had time, as you know. I've been traveling, and I'm off to Europe on Sunday. So I can see maybe while I'm in Europe, I could do something with this show. Otherwise, it'll have to be when I get back. Michael, when Trump talks about immigrants as poisoning the blood of our country and referring to them as vermin, now is that not lifting language out of the Nazi playbook? Yeah, it's definitely lifting out, language out of the racist playbook, whether Nazi or otherwise. It's definitely racist. And it's horrific. It doesn't mean that's where we're heading. It doesn't mean that we're playing by a Nazi playbook. They are, these people are horrible when it comes to treating immigrants, and they're really, really bad guys when it comes to certain issues. They should be condemned. Colleen, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate that. We're only $18 short now. Michael, do you think the market is doing well because there's a lot of deregulation going on behind the scenes we're not aware of? Maybe. I think the market's doing well because tech is doing well. I mean, the market is basically being driven by tech. NVIDIA reported great earnings. Microsoft reported gangbuster earnings. It made it up to $4 trillion, second largest company in the world. Meta reported great earnings. Americans are consuming. Americans are going out there and buying stuff. They're engaged. They're not hunkering down. But basically, our companies, our economy is unbelievably flexible, and it's dealing with whatever the Trump administration, in terms of tariffs, are throwing at it. And in the background, there's no question, when it comes to banking, when it comes to crypto, when it comes to a bunch of different things, and now maybe environment, there is a bunch of deregulation that's going on, and that helps. But earnings season is right now, and earnings so far have been great, which means companies are doing well, which means people have jobs. Look, unemployment is very low still. People have jobs. People are earning. So we can all be pessimistic, and we can, but if you listen to Scott Lincecum, when I interviewed him, he was very clear. Look, the tariffs are bad. They make us poorer. But they don't make us that much poorer. And the U.S. economy is so big and so robust and so flexible that we can overcome even the tariffs. And I think that's important. And it's important to know, when Biden was president and kept expecting a recession, and never happened because the economy could withstand even the nonsense he was doing. And remember, the market was up. Everything was up during Biden. And he was doing terrible things. And now Trump is doing terrible things. And, the economy's still doing okay. It's not doing great. And it wasn't doing great under Biden. It's doing okay in spite of his terrible things. Michael, the only person coming to save you is the version of yourself that's tired of your current situation. Again, this is motivation by fear. Why don't you say the only person coming to save you is the version of yourself that really values life, that really values fill in the blank? Motivation by values, motivation by love. That's what you should focus on. Michael, a few thousand years from now, is it possible the number of irrational humans is reduced to zero? I mean, who knows what a few thousand years from now? I mean, are we human in the same sense as we are today? By then, we're self-evolving. We're control of our own genetic code. We've got chips in our brains. We're manipulating our DNA. I don't know what we look like thousands of years from now. But yeah, I think we're a lot less. I mean, I think rationality's won out. Jason, tell me something nice about Scottsdale. Not too work-related. I used to live there in college. My dad owned a barbecue restaurant in the 80s. I mean, I like some of the architecture in Scottsdale. I like the kind of modern Arizona look. There were a lot of architecture that's inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright in Scottsdale, particularly if you go up in the Camelback Mountain. There's a lot of beautiful homes there. Generally, a lot of beautiful homes, but also some larger kind of structures that are inspired clearly by Frank Lloyd Wright and clearly by there's a kind of a type of modern Southwest vibe, which I think is really beautiful and really nice. They're not the same old kind of McMansions that you see everywhere else. I'm sure there are parts of Arizona that are like that, or Phoenix that are like that, but there's also parts that have beautiful, modern, interesting architectural statements. I also found the food pretty good. The restaurant scene was pretty good. I like numbers. India announced they were pausing gas buys from Russia in response to Trump's tariff threat. Doesn't that show Trump is using tariffs strategically? No, I mean, once in a while he'll hit on something and it'll be successful, but strategy and Trump do not go together. Do not go together. You know, and the reality is, I mean, that's a good thing. I'm glad India stopped buying it. I'm glad that it had that effect on them. But Russia's going to sell it to lots of other countries, and you know, we're going to keep chasing the tariffs on them. You know, what exactly? How do we do that? But no, there's no strategy. And sometimes Trump hits on something right. Partially accidentally, maybe one of his advisors whispers something in his ear, but there's no real strategy, and Putin doesn't seem to really be fearing him or worrying about him, and he's pressuring Putin right now. He's supposedly tough on Putin. You know what would be tough on Putin? Is to announce a big weapons deals with Ukraine. That would be putting the screws on Putin. But no, you know, in 2 days he might reverse everything he's done with regard to Putin. You know, sanctions are not going to bring down Russia. Sanction is not a solution for Russia. The solution for Russia is to arm Ukraine to the teeth. That's the solution. The solution for Russia is to, you know, arm the Ukrainians to such an extent that they kick the Russians' butt out of Ukraine. And that is possible, and that is doable if the administration wanted to do it. Hey, Yaron, do you like Singapore? I know they aren't perfect, but a lot of their policies seem to be reasonable or individual. Could we copy some? Yeah, we could copy the good stuff, absolutely. But we don't need to copy them. We just need to copy them from our own past, some of them. Yeah, I like Singapore. Singapore is one of the freest countries in the world, economically, not so much politically. You know, it's a clean, nice, pleasant place to visit, and it's a great place to do finance, and it's probably a great place to live. You have to watch what you say a little bit, but that's about it, right? So, yeah, I'm a fan of Singapore's. Lynn Coder, we are part of the lawsuit against Trump for the illegal tariffs. Yeah, I know you guys are represented by the Pacific Legal Foundation, but I thought this particular lawsuit in front of the court right now is the other lawsuit. But maybe they've been combined, as I said before. Yeah, Russia, you're not going to kill Russia with sanctions. You're not going to kill Russia with sanctions. The only way to kill Russia, the only way to put the screws on Putin is to arm Zelensky to the teeth. Other people will buy the oil. Other people will buy the natural gas. But you gotta go for the jugular, and the jugular is get Zelensky the weapons. Zelensky's the good guy. I agree with Colleen. Russia is completely playing Trump, has been for years since the first Trump administration. Trump, in many respects, is putty in Putin's hands. All right. Thomas Messengill, recommendations of books on capitalism besides Ayn Rand and Mises. Well, Henry Hazlitt, Bastiat, I don't know. There was the book I recommended about corporations in the 20th century, which was very good. But the Austrian economists are good in economics. Just ignore their anarchy and some of their history. Mathis, for EU recognition, should Taiwan commit atrocities like dictatorship, killing civilians, and human shield, or does that only work when the victims are Jews? It only works when the victims are Jews, and when the people objecting to you recognizing them are not a big country like China, where you have a lot of trade interests. Yeah, I mean, it really is pathetic that they won't recognize Taiwan, but they'll recognize the Palestinians. John says, in an objective society, would adult consensual incest be legal? Me and my adult sister crime. Are you inquiring for you, John? Yeah, it would be legal. No rights are being violated. No rights are being violated. No force is being exerted. So, incest, obviously, when people are not adults, and if it's coerced, is all illegal. But if people choose to do it, if people are sick that way, if people are twisted that way, then there's no reason to make it illegal. There's no rights. No rights are being violated. No rights are being violated. Not a big problem. I don't think there's a lot of tendency towards incest, and society can frown upon it even when it's legal. Like society can frown upon certain drug use, even though the drug use is legal. It can certainly frown upon incest, even if the incest is legal. Immoral is not the same as illegal. Andrew, do you feel pigeonholed into finance issues by Peterson Academy, or does it just make sense based on your background? Do you wish they would call upon your expertise for non-financial related issues? I mean, trade is not finance. Capitalism is not necessarily finance. So if anything, I've been pigeonholed, and corporation is not finance. So if I've been supposedly pigeonholed, it's into capitalism. I don't mind being pigeonholed into capitalism. I get to talk about lots of things regarding capitalism. Now, do I hope that they will let me speak on other topics? Yes, I do. And I think they will ultimately. And look, part of this is going to depend on you guys. The more people sign up for Peterson Academy and upvote or watch my stuff, the more likely it is that they will keep hiring me to do new things. But yeah, I'm going to propose to them a whole series of courses. Some of them will continue to be on business, finance, capitalism, economics, which I'm happy with. I'd like to do some courses on the Middle East. I get why they're sensitive to that. I don't have a degree in Middle East studies. I don't have a PhD in it. I'm not from a university perspective, I'm not an expert. And they'll get pushback on it from some of the people who watch. They can justify, let's say they want to get accreditation. One of the things the accreditation body is going to ask them is other people teaching courses, PhDs, in a related topic to the material they're teaching. Well, I don't have a PhD in a related topic to, for example, Middle East. So I get why they're hesitant. I don't think that's a bad thing. Right? So I completely understand why they are picking the courses they're picking. I hope over time they'll let me do what I want. But I have a list right now of 16 courses that I'm going to propose to them. And we'll see how many of them they let me do and over what timeline. It's 16 courses. Rationality P, what are your thoughts on selecting people with power, judges, prosecutors, politicians, government officials, solely through examinations? No, I mean, particularly not in government officials. Well, certainly not politicians. You could certainly use examination for other things, but no. Politicians need, it's not an issue of knowledge, and having power is not an issue of knowledge. Having power is an issue of how you use the power. So there's got to be a mechanism to get kicked out. There's got to be, there's definitely there should be a process of elections. And, but the same with judges and prosecutors, and you could make them appointed or fired. There should be, but it's not, these positions are not an issue of knowledge. They're an issue of rationality, which is hard to test. And how do you function under pressure? And how do you function under stress? And how do you function under when you have power, which is very different. So I think people choosing those professionals and kicking them out if they don't do a good job is good. Now, you know, maybe government officials, maybe prosecutors, maybe there should be some minimal test for those people. All right, Andrew says, thanks for spreading the word on the virtue of capitalism. Will you talk about capitalism, how capitalism is motivated by love embodied by a social system? You want me to do that now? Will I talk about it? I talk about it all the time. But yeah, capitalism is basically a system of values. It's a system of people pursuing their values, people pursuing the things they love, people pursuing the kind of life they want to live. Capitalism is essentially the system of freedom and liberty, which is the system of love. So yeah, I don't think I've used those terms at the Peterson Academy, but I'm sure they'll come up in one of these classes. Thank you, Andrew. Wes, thank you for the sticker. Really, really appreciate it. $50, that is great. Took us over the target. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that. I want to remind you that, to check out the interview I did with Robert Hendershot on the YouTube website regarding how to try to kind of defer capital gains taxes and a new product that really, really makes a difference. Watch the video. Go to my website on YouTube, and then go to playlists, and it's right there under sponsors. It's the easiest way, I think, to find it. But it's definitely worth checking out. I think it's a good conversation if you're just interested generally in markets and taxes and capitalism. I think you'd enjoy it. All right, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow will be evening. Sorry, Europeans. But it will be evening East Coast time, so late for Europe. And then I will do a show on Saturday and maybe on Sunday if I have time, if I finish packing and I have time, maybe on Sunday as well. We'll see. But certainly tomorrow, probably 7 or 8 p.m. East Coast time. And then on Saturday, probably 2 or 3 p.m. East Coast time. All right, guys, I will see you soon. Have a great rest of your week. Bye, everybody.